Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and today's video is all about my favorite shimmer eyeshadow formulas. Some of these are from palettes, some of these are single shadows, but the thing they all have in common is that they are all shimmer eyeshadows and they are the best of the best of the best. And of course, they're all from wonderful indie brands. If you're new, that means independently owned. So if you're interested in seeing what the best shimmer eyeshadow formulas are, in my opinion, keep on watching. Before we get too far into the video, if you have not already, I would love it if you consider subscribing. I upload videos twice a week. It is totally free to subscribe, and I would love to have you back again on the channel in the future to talk all things makeup in the comments. So these, I will say, are not in any particular ranking or order. There's only one of these that I will say is like my absolute #1 shimmer formula of all time. So I think I'll leave that one for last. The others aren't really in any specific order though, other than just like I love these shimmer formulas. So the first shimmer formula I love and would recommend is from Glaminatrix. This is the You Beauty palette. It's the first palette I picked up from Glaminatrix, but really anything from this whole brand, guys, you can't go wrong shimmer wise. They do also make singles, so if you're not a palette person or if you don't want the price point of a palette, you can get singles. This is an Australian indie brand company, and I think Decay and Flaming Gala, these two were the ones that sold it for me on this brand and made me go, oh, I understand why that's a little bit more expensive. And this is an Australian indie brand company. So there are the two shades swatched. I'm hoping you can see some of the shifts. These are more iridescent shades. Camera will never do multi-chromes and like iridescent shifty duochrome, that sort of shade justice in my opinion. There it is on my fingers as well, just in case maybe that shows up a little bit better for you. But I love this sort of like iridescent toppery shade, and Glaminatrix newer palettes I feel like have maintained the same shift and textures, but they have even more sparkle to them. So if you are someone who wants the look of like a fine glitter without it being not eye safe, Glaminatrix is probably also a good brand for you to check out. I will say none of these brands are cheap. None of them are going to be as cheap as the drugstore. They're not inexpensive. But this video is not about what is the cheapest. It's about what's the best quality. And sometimes you get what you pay for. That's the case with Glaminatrix and a lot of these other brands. Next up, the shimmers from Sugar Drizzle. This is the original palette that got me hooked on Sugar Drizzle. This is the Paint Me Green and Call Me a Pickle because I am done with you eyeshadow palette. I think Teresa's Dead is the one that got me hooked on this, and this is queen of what you see is not what you get. Dill Pickles and In a Pickle. These two shifty shades, and these are like soft shimmers without being like squishy putty. So here's the two from Sugar Drizzle, and while I have pulled specific palettes to show you shimmer formulas, it's not that I'm recommending just like these particular like color stories or palettes. It's just that I pulled one that I like from each brand just to give you an example of what the shimmer formula is like. But these are all brands too that I feel like are for the most part consistent with their shimmer formula throughout all of their palettes, with one or two exceptions, which I will mention along the way. But Sugar Drizzle, I've always loved their shimmers. Their mattes are fine. They mostly do palettes. I think they're starting to do some more shimmer singles, because I know some of these brands, the mattes are not where they shine. They're not bad, but these are the shimmer formula specifically that you'd be going for these in my mind. Next up, Fantasy Cosmetica. I have pulled the Rogue palette. I think these are my favorite shimmers from the brand, but really you can't go wrong again with these shimmers too. Any palette you get is going to be fantastic. But these are just, they're gorgeous. This is more of that like putty squishy formula that we're getting into. If you've used a putty squishy formula before, you probably know what I mean by that. These are ones that you have to go in kind of lightly because otherwise You could get like hitting pan the first time on accident because they are a really soft, squishy formula. But I like this kind of formula a lot. Some shadows need kind of like a glitter primer to give them something to stick to or so that they don't crease. And a lot of these shades, Fantasy Cosmetica included, I don't feel the need to do a glitter primer because they are plenty opaque on their own. And a lot of the shimmer formulas I like are emollient enough that they have a little bit of almost like a tack or a moisture like built into them, so you don't need to add anything. And I have not had any issues with creasing on any of these palettes personally. I still do eyeshadow primer and usually put a matte in the crease, but I haven't had issues with creasing with the shimmers of any of these formulas personally, and I do have somewhat hooded eyes, so just some information for you if you're shopping for shimmers. Next up is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, and this is a brand that is new to me, but I knew immediately I love them. This is from MBA Cosmetics. This is the Moonlit Marsh palette. Their collab with Basket Case Beauty, but this shimmer formula is just lovely, and they have a couple different ones. This like King Cup smoother one is just okay. That's not the one that I'm saying is my favorite, but this more textured shade, I'm sure you can see here, to Moss, the one I'm pointing to, anything that has texture like that I love. Now some of these favorites might come down to personal preference, right? I love a textured shadow. Some of you probably like something that's more smooth. So if you like something smooth, you'd probably like more like this shadow. But I like this type of shadow where it is textured. That's just me. But you know, just because we have different preferences doesn't mean one of us is right and one of us is wrong. You know, it's just we like different things, and that's okay. So here are two from the palette on my hand here. These are not only textured, but they are super emollient. They do have a little bit of that like squishy textured putty feeling too, but they are just gorgeous, and they have like the prettiest flip of duochrome. And these I wouldn't say are like sparkly, like they have a shift and are more like iridescent. Same with the Fantasy Cosmetica. I'd say if you're looking for a sparkle instead of a shift, Glaminatrix is probably your best bet. Some of their newer palettes, they have more sparkles in them. So it really just depends. Are you looking for texture? Are you looking for something smooth? Are you looking for something shifty, something sparkly? All of these have different things to offer, and so I think that's partly why I say I'm not ranking them and they're just all my favorites, because it depends on the rhyme or reason of what you want to use them for as to which one I would recommend for that occasion. But MBA Cosmetics will not steer you wrong with the shimmers. Okay, next up, Ensley Rain. This particular palette is not available anymore, but again, any shimmers, you are not going to go wrong with them. I have this one in the Flower Moon personally. And this one, again, they just have, this is almost like a drier formula. It's not so squishy putty, but it is very impactful, and it definitely has texture to it. So here's a couple here. And these, like from Ensley Rain, I just find too, like the opacity is amazing. And not just from their deeper shades, like even the ones that are more like iridescent are very visible. I feel like sometimes when we get into these lighter shades that like with the eye look white but have a shifty color to it, they almost sometimes just look white on the eyes too, but you can probably see there the kind of like yellowy green shade that we get with the iridescent, and then of course the molten liquid of the gold. I've worn that gold so many times as like a neutral look with this palette, and it's just so flattering. And I think like all of these brands make shades and formulas that would really work for anybody of any skin tone. You're not going to have an issue saying like, where is it? It's not showing up on me like you might for some, sorry, drugstore brands. I like never really, hardly ever will buy eyeshadow palettes. I might have a few in my collection, but a very limited few from the drugstore, because it's just like chalky and not good, and the shimmers are like, where are you? Where are you? Again, these are more expensive palettes, but I would much rather pay for Ensley Rain and know I'm going to use it and absolutely be in love with it every time than buy something cheap that I literally hate to reach for, and I'm like, ugh, this isn't even good when I'm using it and not having a good experience. But that's just me. A few singles here that I really have to mention here. These across the bottom are from Electrum Cosmetics. Now maybe you haven't heard of them, but they are phenomenal. The two I'm going to swatch for you are called Don't Give a Clam. Love the names, love the like campiness of them. And Shrimply Amazing. I think these were singles that went with their Sea Witch collection. Now these and a lot of these singles, you need to go in sparingly. Like you can get too much because they are so pigmented that it's just the little babyest tap 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 will be all you need. These are a smoother formula, but they have such an amazing payoff. Like, can you see? It's just like a glow. Like they're almost luminescent. They're so glowy. Like I look like a lightning bug when I wear these, in my opinion. And if that's not what we all want, I don't know what is. I really don't. Again, that's Electrum Cosmetics. I feel like that's a lesser known brand that I hear a lot of people talk about. They are incredible with their shimmers. Continuing on the theme of singles, all these square ones at the top are Clionadh Cosmetics. I recently talked about this one, Enamel. That is one of my favorites. I will leave that video linked if you haven't seen it, some of my recent favorites, or things that used to be favorites that I retried, rather, I guess I should say. But there are some others that I will swatch for you that I also really love. These are all from the Stained Glass collection. The first one I'm going to show you is Tessera. And then after that, I'm going to show you Chandelier, because those are just a couple of my favorites. These, I think, are some of the first multi-chromes I ever tried, and they are, again, expensive. And I was like, man, really hemming and hawing over getting them for that price because it was just so expensive. So I got one, I remember, Enamel, and I bought it for myself for a birthday gift and was like, okay, I'm just going to get one because it's like $14 for a shade, and you know, we'll see how it goes and we'll play it by ear. And hello, here we are now with this many later. I surely don't even have close to the amount that they have, but this one is the Tessera, and then this one, the more like green leaning one, that one is the one called Chandelier, and they are both, again, just these beautiful smooth iridescent shifty shades. I'm really into those right now for shimmers, but again, that's not all I like, because I do like the more glittery looking, but they're not pressed glitters, from Glaminatrix. I do like the more like putty squishy ones, like I said, from Fantasy Cosmetica and MBA. And I would be so remiss if I did not talk about, for shimmers, Touch of Glam Beauty. They are impeccable. Here they are. The square ones are the Touch of Glam Beauty. I think of all of the shimmers that I own, these take the least amount of product for the most payoff, honestly. So I'm gonna swatch for you guys today. Let's do a purple one. This is called Dirty Little Secret. And then I'll show you like a more, I guess, kind of like neutrally one. This one's called High Tides and Good Vibes. So, and let me know if you guys want to see any more of these swatched. Some people just don't like swatching videos, but I have so many that I've definitely never filmed with that I would love to show off if you guys are interested. Hello. Can we just... Again, it's got a little bit of the texture. They're not too squishy putty. They are very soft. I would not wear a glitter primer with these because I actually find that some of them do crease with a glitter primer, but they don't crease on their own, which is interesting. But man, these are just creamy. Like they have some sort of emollient to them that you just don't find in a lot of brands. Maybe you don't like that, maybe you like something drier, but for me, they work exceptionally. All right, now we're down to the final brand, you guys, my final recommendation for shimmer formulas, and this is my #1 shimmer formula of all time, any brand. It is Adept Cosmetics. Now let me specify. I like the shimmer formula that Adept, I will say, used to do. I think they still do it some, but it feels like they're phasing it out, and it makes me really, really sad because I love this formula, the ACI formula specifically, that they used to do exclusively in palettes like the Plain Jane and the Ninhydrin. Let me show you. We haven't done like pink yet. That'll be good. And then one of the more neutrals. So this is ACI 12 and ACI 1 from this palette. Oh, I mean, come on. They are so good. These are like my one and done shadows that I could just do one shade all over the lid and be done. They're not necessarily shifty. Some of them are, but they just like, man, they just do the darn thing. Here's ACI 7, just so you can see one that does have a little bit more of a flip or a shift on it. These are my absolute favorites. So the reason I was specifying, here's a newer Adept palette. This is the Element 115. A lot of these are smoother. They're not the ACI formula. Like here's one that is the S4 Test Site. Let me swipe it next to it in comparison. Still really pretty, that purple, but it's not the same texture. It's a lot smoother. And it's still fine, but I don't know why. I think just the texture to me gives it more dimension. And a lot of times when I wear a textured shadow and I put it all over the lid, it actually, with the texture, makes it look like it has more dimension and makes it look like I'm wearing more than one shade or shadow when I've just done one all over the lid. So it's just like a more complex formula that looks fancier, I guess is what I'm saying, in my opinion. But yeah, guys, these are all of the shimmer formulas that are my absolute favorite. Obviously, I haven't tried every single shimmer to ever exist, so maybe you guys can recommend to me, what are your favorite shimmer formulas? Is there something I haven't tried that I need to? Or maybe I have tried it and we just have different preferences, and that's totally fine too. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, found it helpful, and thanks so much for making it all the way to the end. I hope to see you again on the next one. Bye!